This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne, and this is an independent England supporters podcast. Now, I must say, firstly, thank you very much for all the feedback on the recent episodes, be it the last one of our England at the European Championships, the 2016 one, or the England C episode, or any of the others. It's always great to hear from you. And of course, recently we spoke with Matthew Halliday about his first England away game, which was Costa Rica in the Brazil World Cup. And this episode, we'll speak with another supporter who went on a journey following our national team at a very young age. Now, all those previous episodes are still available on your usual podcast provider, be it iTunes, Spotify or the like, or you can head direct to threelionspodcast.com. Now, I wonder how many supporters will choose the Qatar World Cup of 2022 as their first away trip. Well, we now know the match schedule that games will be played on. Obviously, we don't know who will be there yet, but FIFA announced on the 15th of July that the tournament will begin on the 21st of November 2022, and the final the 18th December. And with 32 teams in the tournament, the group stage will see 4 games a day. And the round of 16 and the quarter-finals, there will be 2 a day. And as I've said before on here, I'm in two minds about going. My morals say no, what with all the corruption that has come with it and the loss of lives in the stadium constructions. But I feel that as it gets nearer, I'll be getting itchy feet. Although with it being so close to Christmas, can't see it doing my bank balance much good. Right then, let's crack on with this episode. Another in our Your First England Away game. Now don't forget, you can tell us about yours. Just drop me a line on any of the social media channels or at threelionspodcast@gmail.com. As I've previously said, it'd be great to hear some of the older stories. But this time, we're speaking with Alfie Wilson. But before we hear his memories, I'd just like to, firstly, apologise for the audio quality. Now, you'll be able to hear Alfie fine, but for whatever reason, my microphone didn't pick me up as it should. And whilst you can still hear me, I sound a little bit distant. I hope it doesn't spoil it too much for you. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast. We're doing another one of our Your First England Away game. We're going to Oxford this time. I'd like to welcome Alfie Wilson. Alfie, hello.
Hello, Russell. Good to be on here.
You're very welcome. Thanks for getting in touch and saying I've got a first England game story to let us know about.
Yeah, and one of the very young ones.
Yeah. Go on. How old were you at the time?
I was 11. At the time. Yeah, so I'm 19 now. For my 11th birthday, which is in April, so 2 months before the tournament started, my dad said we're going to Kiev for 2.5 weeks to see all the group games in Kiev. So Ukraine versus Sweden and Sweden versus France were the two others, but obviously one of them was Sweden versus England.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Birthday present. Oh, I'd love to have a dad like that.
Yeah.
So, England-Sweden, Euro 2012. It was game number 907. What was your thoughts when your dad told you that?
It was amazing, yeah, because I was a bit sceptical because obviously all of my tournament memories of England up to that point hadn't been particularly good. But it was always going to be amazing to see England at a major tournament. And Sweden were probably the weakest side in the group. That gave you a little bit more hope.
We had France and Ukraine, host Ukraine, were also in our group, weren't they? Yeah. We'd already drawn with France in Donetsk before we came to Kiev, and myself personally, I remember getting the overnight train from Donetsk to Kiev, which was an event in itself.
Well, yeah, because my dad didn't want 11-year-old me making. I think the train journey to Donetsk would have been about 9 or 8 hours, a really long journey, which for me wouldn't have been too regardable. But so we just stayed in Kiev for 2.5 weeks, which I think was a good decision.
Yeah. What did you make of Kiev?
I really liked it. So my dad is professor of Ukrainian studies at UCL.
Right.
And so throughout my childhood, always hearing stories about the post-Soviet world and his various travels there. And it was my first time going to a post-Soviet country, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I was pleasantly surprised. We stayed in a really central area. It was actually in between the stadium and the Kreshchatyk, where the fan zone was, that really long street, as I'm sure you'll remember.
Yeah.
And it was great. We always did a little tourist thing per day. So on the day of the Ukraine-Sweden game, we got into an adopted patriotic mood by going to the motherland statue, which overlooks the river, which is like 100 meters tall. It's quite similar to the one in Volgograd, where England played Tunisia, actually, and also like to all the lovely churches. And it was really nice.
What I remember about Kiev, there was a few things. As I say, a lot of the churches dotted around, and the main strip where the fan zone was. But I remember there was the funicular that went up the hill that you could get on.
Yeah, that was. I think it was something like cost like 8p a ride to go up there, which was
There was the river, the main river that runs through the city, and what I do remember is on looking across the river, there's a little island in the middle, which was just jam-packed, rammed full of Swedes, all pitched up tents there.
Absolutely, yeah. They called it like Camp Sweden.
That's right.
Because all their group games are in Kiev. It was kind of the same in the fan zone. They had a sort of area of the fan zone where they sort of annexed as well. And they kept on because they won a Eurovision a few weeks earlier, and one of the songs was called Euphoria. And they seemed to just be blasting that out on a loop and just having a rave from like 3 p.m. onwards every day. But there were absolutely loads of Swedes, and because the England fans didn't really start arriving until like 1 or 2 days before the game. For the opening 5 or 6 days of the tournament, Kiev was basically like a mini Stockholm. So, yeah.
So did you watch the England-France game? Were you out there then, and did you watch it in a bar locally?
No, we actually watched it in the fan zone on the big screen. My dad was outraged because obviously he's a regular traveller to Kiev, and they tripled the price of a pint of beer from 50p to £1.50, which he wasn't too happy about. And then we just rushed home, got the tickets for the Ukraine-Sweden game, and went straight to the stadium without any dinner, as I remember. And so we came out of the stadium at around 11 o'clock, absolutely famished. And, went to a local bar for some burger and chips, I think.
Nice. I mean, that stadium, the game, which we've been experienced 3 times there, I'm guessing. It's the Olympic Stadium, isn't it? Which is a fantastic stadium.
Well, the Ukraine-Sweden game was actually Ukraine's first ever competitive game in the new stadium, because it was specifically built for Euro 2012. Because the only stadium in Kiev up to that time was the sort of ramshackle Dynamo Kiev stadium by the river, which some people might remember from like 98-99 Champions League. But the stadium was great. We were in the upper tier for all 3 games in various areas of it. But no, it was really good atmosphere for each game.
Yeah, I found my ticket for it. I got it down all tucked away in the programme, and I was in the lower stand or the lower tier, just on one of the corner flags.
Yeah, so were you with the main cluster of England fans? Just to the left corner of the goal.
Yeah, so it says, where am I? I was in the yellow stand. I was in block 19, row 26, seat 18, where I was there. I was 330 euros or 30
Blimey.
Ukrainian. What's the currency in Ukraine?
Hrivnia.
Hryvnia, 300 hryvnia.
And well, me and my dad were in the top tier of the stadium, just behind or above the tunnel, rather, was where all the commentary teams were.
Okay.
And we were just to the right of that. And we were only actually a few seats away. I distinctly remember there was a very loud Colombian commentator, I think, or he might have been from another Latin American country. I think it was Colombia, who got very excited with the Welbeck goal, especially, rightfully so.
Yeah.
We had a great view of it.
Well, that must be an interesting little vantage point from where the commentators sit, just to, I don't know, to casually see them and how they work.
Yeah, it was definitely the most enlightening because for the other two games, so for the Ukraine-Sweden game, we were behind one of the goals. And then for the Sweden-France game, which obviously meant that we missed the Ukraine-England game, as I remember was quite a dull affair. So it would have been a good game to miss. But we were, again, behind the goal for the Sweden-France game where Zlatan scored his scissor kick, which was just amazing. But yeah, my favourite area to sit at the stadium was centrally by the commentary box. Yeah, great view of things.
Cool. Well, I mean, on to the game. What did you think going into it? Did you have sort of a prediction or thoughts?
Well, I actually thought our first 3 games under Roy Hodgson were really promising, especially in the tournament sense, because in the 2 friendlies against Norway and Belgium, look, they were both really dull games, but we were really solid defensively. And it was more of the same against France in the opener because we sort of had the 2 banks of 4. And then it was either like Welbeck and Young up front in the opening game, I think. And they were linking up together quite nicely. And we would look good from set pieces. So I remember Jolien Lescott's goal against France. It was just a pinpoint ball from Gerrard. So for the Sweden game, when the lineup came out, I think he dropped Oxlade-Chamberlain, actually. And he played Welbeck and Carroll up front.
That's
and then
right.
Young on the left and Milner on the right. Gerrard and Parker with the midfield too. But Gerrard and Milner kept on swapping with each other. And like either of them would, have a go at whipping in balls from the right-hand side, which we looked dangerous from. And that was obviously where we got our first goal, with Andy Carroll with what's probably my favourite header ever.
It's good header, that one, wasn't it? So 23 minutes in.
It looked like it was up from outside the box when it first went in. It was that powerful. But yeah, it sort of came out of nowhere, really, because it was quite a dull first half. It definitely livened up in the second half.
Yes. Well, I mean, so we went in 1-0 up, and you say it wasn't the most exciting in the first half, but we got the goal and we're 1 up. And then, as you say, the second half sort of exploded, especially right at the very beginning.
Well, yeah, it was. I wasn't really expecting it, actually. Sweden's first goal from the set piece, I think Sebastian Larsson was on it, and he just smashed it into the wall, and it kind of ricocheted everywhere, and nobody really knew what was going on. And I think it just came off Glenn Johnson's thigh and went into the corner. It was quite unlucky.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, and then a few minutes later, Mellberg got the second one, and he was unmarked for that one. I remember being quite annoyed at that. And then obviously you go 2-1 down in quick succession. You fear that the momentum's all going to be with them. But he brought Theo Walcott on, and that seemed to change everything, really.
Well, pretty much immediately, wasn't it? So Walcott came on for James Milner. And he'd literally been on 2-3 minutes, didn't he, before he got the ball on the edge of the area, or probably further back than that.
Yeah, no. So I think the corner came in from the left, and it was just headed out, and Walcott just picked it up, and he kind of just fired it into the mire of bodies in the box, and it got a little deflection off someone, but it was just enough to put the Swedish keeper off. I think it was Andreas Isaksson, and it just sort of looped in weirdly. From our angle at the time, it just looked like Walcott had scored a screamer and like had a load of swerve on the ball. But on replays, yeah, it was a perfect time to score. It really was. Just 5 minutes after to settle the nerves.
That was his first goal since he'd scored a hat-trick against Croatia in the 4-1 away win.
Wow. Well, I remember Did he? I don't think he went to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, did he?
Ooh, good
He
question.
was definitely he was famously there at 2006 when he was like
Yes.
17 or whatever, and obviously missed the year 2008. But yeah, I don't remember him being at the 2010 World Cup, and so it was finally good when he still had a promise to see him at a major tournament and deliver.
Yeah. And then so it was 2-2 for a little while before, well, you've already mentioned it, haven't you? Danny Welbeck. What a goal. I just remember being in that lower tier, just going absolutely crazy.
It was bedlam in the lower tier. We got a good view of it. But in the 10 minutes like leading up to it, Walcott kept on, going down the right, and he was causing their left back a load of trouble. It seemed to work a really good sub. And Walcott picked the ball up for that goal. He sort of looked like a blind alley in between the left back and the centre back, but he managed to just knock the ball through him and then pull it back, and Welbeck had moved across to the front post. It looked like Welbeck, I don't know, was going to try and control it and lay it back for, I think Gerrard was running into the box. But it was just an absolutely magnificent finish, moment of genius. I remember after me and my dad went mental for 10 seconds, he was like, "Oh, that was such a sexy goal." Saying it like that. And absolutely incredible. And I think might be one of our best goals at a major tournament of the last decade, if not the best.
Wow, it could well be. It was certainly different, wasn't it? The way he sort of hooked it behind himself and tucked it past, Iskason.
He liked a quirky finish. He scored a load of dinks, as I seem to remember, and he was one of the sort of early pioneers in the modern era of that backheel finish from a low cross. And obviously one of them coming off in such an important game was great.
Yeah, he liked a different celebration as well, didn't he? I'm trying to.
Yeah, he sort of, as I seem to remember, put his two arms out and just moved them in and out like
modern day breakdancing.
Yeah. And I seem to remember him jumping over the advertising hoardings onto the athletics track where there are a load of England flags, soaking it up right in front of the main core of England fans.
I mean, well, you mentioned an athletics track there. Usually grounds with an athletics track, they don't have that sort of feel to it. But that day, that night, that game, you wouldn't have known there was an athletics track around there.
No, you wouldn't, because for the Euros they covered it all up, but especially where the goal where England attacked during the second half, there was just an absolute mass of England flags just sort of covering up, so you wouldn't have known there was an athletics track there. It was nice to spot two from towns near Oxford in Witney and Wallingford. It was nice
on flags?
Yeah.
Did you know them? Have you seen those flags before?
I think I've seen them at Wembley a few times, near Block 109, but I've only been on 2 England away days since and haven't seen them.
How did you find the rest of staying in Ukraine then?
It was good. We sort of rationed our tourist things to do to 1 per day, so that sort of lasted us for the 15 or 16 days whilst we were there. I remember one afternoon my dad actually had to, I think he interviewed someone for some reason, I can't quite remember, but it was right out in the outskirts of the city where most of the housing is the really traditional old Soviet blocks, mammoth towers.
Yeah.
And it was quite fun to experience that side of the city as well. Also, we were in Kiev for 2.5 weeks, so obviously there's only so much stodgy Soviet cuisine you can take. And so after about 7 or 8 days, each morning we ended up biting the bullet and going to our local patisserie and having tiramisu for breakfast instead of dodgy Ukrainian cereal, which was quite an interesting thing.
Obviously, we progressed through after we beat Ukraine. We ended up back in Kiev for the game against Italy. Were you there for that?
No. We went home by then. Looking at how the Italy game went, it was probably a good thing because, as I remember, they just we were knackered after 60 minutes. They just passed it around us like we weren't even there. Pirlo was orchestrating it all. Another penalty shootout defeat, and one where we were ahead in. as I seem to remember, before Ashley Cole and Ashley Young missed their penalties, which made it even more frustrating.
And one that's famously remembered by Pirlo and his Panenka over Joe Hart.
And Joe Hart doing his scare tactics before each pen to no avail, because the one Italy missed, I think Montalivo dragged it wide.
Well, he's got to try whatever he can, hasn't he? Any goalkeeper in that situation. Okay, and so you've been to a few England away games since?
Well, so I've been to 2 since. One of them was another game in Kiev. It was Ukraine-England in a 2014 World Cup qualifier for Brazil.
Oh, yes.
And it was an absolutely turgid, awful 0-0. It was one of our final games. And as I seem to remember, Danny Welbeck got suspended the game before. So we had to have Ricky Lambert up front instead. We had barely any pace going forward. To be honest, we were lucky to get out of there with a point because Ukraine were really strong in that qualifying campaign. They nearly beat us at Wembley, as I seem to remember. I think Conor Plianka, their left winger, scored a worldie. And we only got a point because Lampard scored a penalty.
I vaguely remember, yeah.
Yeah, just before the end. But it set us up well for the final 2 against Montenegro and Poland. So it's good to get a point, I guess. And then the other one was, it was actually inadvertently how we went because we booked a skiing holiday in northern Italy. It was in late March 2015. And we then realised that England had a friendly in Turin against Italy.
Oh, yes.
And we drove an hour and a half from our ski resort to go to that. We were in the home end for that, which was slightly weird. I think that game is most famously remembered for in popular culture for the Mexican wave going round the stadium before the England fans stop it and give them a few fruitful signs and
as we like to do.
But no, that was actually it was a good game. Andros Townsend scored a really good goal. He rocketed one into the far corner, which was good. And very Italian job vibes with an England friendly in Turin.
Well, so obviously this year's not going to happen, and we're all sort of pinning our hopes on next year. What are your thoughts for next year?
I think we've got a good chance. Croatia and Czech Republic should be 2 wins, and then whoever wins from playoff C, which I think will be Norway, that should be another win. So I'll be surprised if we don't win our group. And then some people are a bit frustrated because if we win our group, the last 16 match be against either France, Germany or Portugal, which is a very tough game. But I actually think it's a good thing, to be honest. I think it would be good to test ourselves against a really strong side since the World Cup, where we had a fairly easier route to the semi-finals. And then if we, get past France, Germany or Portugal, the momentum and the confidence from that will probably take us to the semi-finals. And then with the semi-finals and the final at Wembley,
could do it, couldn't we?
Well, there's always, seems to be 1 or 2 teams who make it to the semis who you wouldn't really expect. So if we get one of them, I do have tickets for the last 16 game in Dublin and then subsequently the quarters in Rome if we win that. So, I've gambled on England winning the group. I'm confident we'll do that at least.
Well, let's hope so. There's plenty of us in that same gambling boat.
But, I didn't really fancy going to any of the games at Wembley. I think I'd rather watch the games at home with my mates in a beer garden somewhere.
Fair enough. Well, Alfie Wilson, thank you very much for sharing your memories, your thoughts, and those little anecdotes on your first England away game, England-Sweden, Euro 2012.
Thanks, Russell. All the best.
So thank you to Alfie there. 11 years old for a first England away. I think I was 21, 22. Still, it's not a competition. As always, thank you for listening. Always great to hear from you and your stories. So I've got a few more tucked away, so I'll get those out soon. I'm just looking forward now to when I can speak with an opposition supporter, an Icelandic or Danish. Then I know that we'd have a game on the horizon. Not wanting to wish it away, but well, to be honest, that wouldn't be a too bad thing, wishing this year away, but I hope you know what I mean. As I said at the beginning, if you do want to get involved, just drop me a line on all the usual social media channels, Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. I can't be bothered with TikTok. I'm too old for that. But just search 3 Lions Podcast or email me, 3lionspodcast@gmail.com. Until the next time, keep staying safe. We're not out of the woods just yet. Cheers.